Hi, this is Ari Kopel with Shattering the Matrix. I'm here today with the show Walking Between Realities with our beloved AtonaAreyus for part 4 of this wonderful series. And today we're going to be picking up where we left off. Last time we were speaking of a wonderful experience that AtonaAreyus had at Yosemite in El Capitan. So we're going to pick it up from there, and we have amazing, wonderful things to talk about today. So I am very, very sure that all of you will be very, very pleased and enlightened to hear this information. Atona, welcome again.
Hi, Ari. Hello to your listeners. I'm very excited to be speaking with all of you again.
Absolutely.
I do want to mention something, and that is I'm sure that you have noticed that our programs are not always in a linear fashion, so you may be calling Ari or checking to see when my next talk is. That's because we do not work in linear time with this. We're actually following synchronicity.
Yes, and it's, whenever, the message is, called to be divulged, I suppose, and so we're working in that way. So absolutely, Atona, let's go ahead and, if you don't mind, continue where you left off last time, where you were experiencing a total dissolving, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
I can take it from there.
Definitely.
Okay, so if you'll remember, I was in Yosemite, and I was in front of El Capitan, and I was actually in a valley that had the Merced River running through it. And I began to experience, while in meditation, a sensation like everything was starting to dissolve. And I am saying this again so I can refresh your memory. And for those who just started in, please go back and catch the other ones, the other
one through 3, yes.
In that dissolve, I actually continued to have telepathic communication. I was dissolving, and usually I could see when in meditation that the light that was constructing a wall, the wall would begin to dissolve. But the minute I just slightly moved my eyes in that direction or any motion, it would come back into solid form so quickly. But this time, that meditation, I could sense that dissolve, like what would happen when I would begin to see the wall dissipate and the light come through. Began to happen, and it became very, 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 very strong, and I began to fight the sensation. And basically I got on all fours, and I was watching my hands gripping the earth, and I started to see the molecular structure of my hands and the earth part. And so I did not see my hand as a hand. I saw it in the process of dissolving. I saw the earth become a molecular structure of atoms and motion. And then I began to communicate questions in my mind's eye. And I said, "What's happening?" And I heard, "Oh, it's only all just dissolving." Now, time here began to be very, very different. I did not have a sense of how long this was taking or how short it was. And I began another question, which was, "What do you mean it's only all just dissolving?" And I heard, "Who's asking?"
Yeah.
And when I went to look for myself, I couldn't find what I normally oriented myself with, which was my body, which was a location in time and space. And I experienced knowing that there was no inside, no out, no up, no down. And I was floating in that awareness, but still attached to trying to bring everything into form. And so I brought forth another question. And I asked again, where's El Capitan?
Yeah.
And I heard let go of the questioner, at which point I experienced a complete dissolve. And the experience I had was a conscious knowing of the beginninglessness and the endlessness, the eternalness of my being. And there was nothing outside of me. It was an extraordinary place. It's very, very difficult to expand on.
Yeah.
There's no sense of any time in linear thinking whatsoever. You just are so completely aware of the eternalness of the totality of your essence. And at that point, I understood everything there was to understand. And simultaneous to that, there was nothing to understand. Now, I know that that might sound very contradictory, and that is a problem with describing states like this, because you are using polarized words that conjure specific understandings that are held within the mind, and they limit your comprehension. So most will hear from people who have had these experiences that you can't speak about them.
Yep.
Only in paradox. So you have to begin to see paradoxically. And as we go on, hopefully your understanding of the nature of this reality will give you a greater understanding of how to see paradoxically and to see through what is constructing your life experience. So it was in linear time. I knew that it had been around 2 sometime in the afternoon when I went into that meditation, and it was very, very quick that I went into the dissolve. It wasn't until after 10 at night that everything began to reform. And I actually witnessed the reforming. The interesting thing about it was that I was not in the reforming. I was witnessing the reforming.
Wow.
And I watched form come into being. And I watched my body come back into being. And I watched, there was a deer in the field, and I literally saw the consciousness of the deer take form. And that, I will say, will not end the experience, because it has been pretty much like that for me from that point forward. So I don't consider myself to be in matter or subject to the same experience that I had before. I also found that I was able to take information from any of the written books on any of the teachings, and I had full comprehension of that.
Right.
Whereas before, I wouldn't have understood what they were talking about in the Upanishads, or what they were talking about with the yin-yang Tao symbol. So it was a real change in my consciousness that took place there. As you know, from that point forward, really you don't live in a linear fashion, although it appears to be that way to others. Your experience of that is not. It isn't linear. So time is an illusion, and when you begin to dissolve the structures of mind that hold it into form, you begin to see and live from synchronicity. One of the best ways of introducing yourself to this is not through, and I don't want to polarize here, it's not through the science that we now know, the mathematical science of the medical profession and things like that. Not to put that down, because as you know, I don't polarize with that.
Right.
But there is a science. Do you know what I'm speaking of, Ari? It's known as the science of the eternal.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? Come on, you know.
You talking about quantum?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It's quantum physics. And if you are interested in beginning your journey with me, I suggest you pick up some of the books that I'm going to give to Ari to suggest you take a look at.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not asking you to study it. I'm just asking you to browse through it. Because what will happen is the things that you need to know that are next in your particular journey are going to jump out at you.
Interesting.
And all you have to do is get, there are just, I think, 3 very simple books, and just browse through them.
Do you remember the titles, Atona?
I'm not going to give the titles to you right now, Ori, if you don't mind. I'll allow you to put it on the site. I think it's good for them to, be able to go
to
the site and get the information. And this way I don't get interrupted in my train of thought.
Sounds good.
So, from that experience, I had other synchronistic experiences that took place that actually I found who had been speaking to me up in Yosemite, and it was by an experience that was absolutely fantastic. It occurred in 2 places. One was up at Mount Shasta, and one was, you know what I'm
yes, I
to.
do.
Yes.
Yeah.
One was up at Mount Shasta, and one was in my home in Colorado. And we're not going to give any time references to this. We're just going to let you know that Ari happened to be with me up in Mount Shasta, and another friend was as well. Ari, will you share a little about your own personal experience of that? Because that was an amazing. And if you do, I'll take you back to the cave.
Okay, all right. Well, first I'd like to interject here a little bit just to give the listeners a background, first of all, of how we're doing and conducting this interview today. Because obviously we're not going to be going so much in linear, as Atona has just made it very clear, but we're going to be bringing in experiences that Atona's had, maybe I've had, maybe other people that are that we know or Atona knows that have also had experiences like this. So it's basically to share with you all the fact that there is more than meets the eye in this world, and that we're not alone, as many of you already are aware, but that we are working with amazing, beautiful beings of light, the hierarchy of light. We're working with the Illumined Worlds, and they're as close as a slight little thin veil. Okay, they're right in the room, right next to you, and so we're bringing up those experiences, and that's what we're doing. So if you see that we're kind of like all over the place, there's a reason for that. So going back to Mount Shasta, you sure you want me to go there now?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's so much fun, It
was.
I'll share what happened with our other friend as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I think then I would like to then take the road trip first on our. Well, okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
I love that road.
That was a great road trip.
I hope that we can bring some of your listeners on that road trip with us.
And we will. We will. That is the intention. The road trip on the way to Mount Shasta was absolutely amazing. It was just one of those experiences that you'll never forget, you treasure, and it's still in my being. Because we took that, what was it? We went via the loneliest road
in America.
In America. Route, I don't remember, it was 99?
It's called the loneliest road in America. Look it up.
Yeah, and I kid you not, we would be on the road, I don't know, for hours, and we wouldn't see a car. Remember that? Not one single car. If we had gotten, a flat or something, we would have been there waiting for hours before we saw another car. But it was magical because we got to go through the desert. And on the trip, we were playing amazing, just high vibrational music that was just so divine. And so every single molecule of my body was vibrating in such high vibrations, such a state that my awareness was so heightened, and I was just in bliss the whole trip. And so all you see from side to side is the most amazing, peaceful landscape that is just pure and pristine, and just by itself it's resonating a very high frequency, because it's just pristine. There's nothing of a lower consciousness, invading it or anything. So
just to give you some understanding a little further, there were no houses along this route either.
No, there's nothing.
And one of the things that I kept saying as we're driving along and I'm looking out is, oh my God, how absolutely beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
How beautiful this is. There was nothing really extraordinary about the landscape,
Nope.
I honestly have to admit.
Nope.
But it looked so beautiful that I just had to keep commenting on how beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Take it from there.
Yeah, there's absolutely nothing, absolutely zero, and just beautiful sand dunes, and just interesting rock formations, and just peace. Right, and I remember going through it, and we actually got to travel through it while it was nighttime, and it was pitch black, right? And remember that we had to stop.
Transited into the night.
We did.
We saw it in the daylight, and we were transiting in the night as well.
Yes, and so we actually stopped the car to get out and take a look at the night sky. Remember that?
Oh, yes.
And you can actually see the Milky Way, and it was just majestic. Right there, it was like little bulbs of light, maybe during Christmas or something. They were just hanging, And how many ships did we see that night?
Oh, I have no idea.
It was huge.
I didn't remember.
Yeah, it was amazing. Anyway, that was just the journey going to Mount Shasta. So that kind of tells you, I'm trying to bring, a sensation of the sublime. We were actually immersed in the sublime while we were traveling there. So our vibration was getting higher and higher and higher every time, that we were traveling, every hour, And then all of a sudden we kind of hit a little
it started to look dirty to me.
It started.
What happened? I actually commented and I said, "Oh, what happened?"
Yeah.
It's looking, and again now we're in the light again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
It's daytime.
So we went through night and now we're back in daytime.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at the landscape and it's looking dirty. And I even said, "Ari, look how dirty everything is looking here."
Yeah.
And she goes, "Oh my God."
I said,
we're not far away now from
Reno. We were. I said it's the reason. It's the fact that we're entering Reno, and the consciousness there is a lower vibration.
Well, in actuality, what it was is that we were beginning to enter into human consciousness again.
That's it.
And that's what I was actually seeing.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't have anything to do with, and not to knock the activities or things that go on. I'm not polarizing with Reno.
Right.
Or the people that participate there. It's just that states of mind reek out of cities.
Yeah.
And we had been in a distance far enough away so that we were not immersed in that. And this is something that you can experience also if you go into a high mountain range. When you get up above 6,500 feet, you're already beginning to transit out of where human consciousness kind of floats around.
Yeah. So that's the experience, and that so it was very clear of the fact that we were so basking in those wonderful vibrations, and then when we hit that human consciousness area where everybody was concentrated there, it was a clear distinction, and that's the point I'm bringing this up, is because there is a clear distinction. So anyway, we continued our trip, but we went to so we're at Mount Shasta because, there so many things happen in between. My goodness, it's just never ending. But to go to Mount Shasta, so we were at Mount Shasta. Let's see here. How does that work? Oh my gosh, Atona, I really can't go into the story because remember that night before. It was so cold that we actually went to Bunny Flats. We were sitting on that little bench and we were all meditating. And do you remember? So that's the reason that we went to Bunny Flats and we were meditating at night, and so I just wanted to mention Bunny Flats because what happened was that following day, everybody wanted to go to Mount Shasta, and we decided to, okay, so where are we going to go? You wanted to go all the way to the top. Our other friend wanted to go somewhere else. I think it was Panther Meadows, and I said, oh no, just leave me here at Bunny Flats because that's what I knew because we have been there the night before. So I figured I'd be sitting there doing my Merkaba activation because I do Merkaba activations, and then I would meditate, and I'd be on Bunny Flats, waiting to have my amazing experience with the masters. Just one master would do. I would be very happy to have an experience with one. And I was just sitting there, and Atona took off. She dropped our friend off at Panther Meadows, and she continued up, all the way up to the top of the mountain as far as she could go. And I had no idea where anybody was at this point other than I knew Atona was one place, our other friend was somewhere else, and I was at Bunny Flats. And I'm going, okay, I'm sitting here now. Let me take a look. Starting now. Okay, so I sit there and I'm doing my meditations. I'm doing my Merkaba activations, and I'm already flying, because my vibration. I've gotten to that point where I was already, very high vibration. I felt it, and but I'm looking at my watch, and half an hour goes by, and gosh, not even a butterfly. What's going on? It's like, what's going on? And I keep going and said nothing. An hour went by, nothing. And I'm going, okay, I know there's something is supposed to happen. The magic happens in this mountain. I just don't understand it. I don't know how long it was, Atona. Maybe about an hour and a half, was it, or something?
I think it was actually a little bit longer.
Was it?
I was up there I was over an hour. And
okay.
It took a while to get up there.
It did. It takes a while. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it must have been maybe about 2 hours maybe or something like that. It was a long time. I was just sitting there and nothing was happening. And all of a sudden I said, I've got to get up from this position because I'm hurting. It wasn't working for me, and all of a sudden I see this car kind of speeding down the hill. It's just because the road to Mount Shasta, because it kind of curves around the edges through the hill anyway. So I see this car like speeding, and I think you were even honking the horn like beep beep beep. And I'm going, oh my God, look at that, it's Atona. She's coming down. She's flying down, And so I come down, I go down the hill, and I get down to the street level where the parking area was, and I meet you, and she goes to me, Ari, you won't believe this. Come on in. I got to tell you, you got to come with me. Come, hurry. And I go, what's going on? She goes, you won't believe it. So I said, get in the car, and she takes off again up the hill where she just came from. And she starts telling me this amazing experience that she just had with,
and I can take it from
and go ahead.
I had gone to this area up on the mountain at a much higher elevation than where Ari actually was, and there was a flat area that overlooked the mountain range and a cleared spot, and there was a flat boulder out there, and I went immediately to the flat boulder, and I sat there, and within seconds a ray of magnificent light came out of the ethers and hit my heart chakra, and I saw completely around me a magnificent temple that was an etheric temple. And the ray that was extending into my heart chakra was changing its color. And then when you have an experience like this, the energetics of it is also inclusive. You may not have a chorus that you visually see, but the essence of sound is always there. And magnificent, beautiful sound that's so uplifting, like you're listening to a chorus full of absolutely thousands of angels singing. And not that you're deafened, it's just a sense that you have. Mm-hmm. And the next thing that happens is a master appeared right in front of me. And I knew immediately who he was, although I had never seen him before, except one photograph of him. And he just stood there and he just looked at me, and he looked straight into my eyes. And it was Master Morya. And then it stopped. And I was right back sitting on the rock, and I got up. I knew it was finished. I knew that connection with Master Morya was very, very significant, and that was the end of it. That I went flying down the hill to get my friend to bring her up for her own experience, because I knew she'd have one, and you can go from there.
Yeah, I'm just wow, remembering it. So you take me up, you basically were flying up that hill in a car. And so you told me the whole story of what you just said in the car, and I'm going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, So when you got all the way to the top and you parked, we walked out, and you actually escorted me to the actual rock area where you were, that you actually showed me the rock where I was supposed to sit at. And I go, okay, not a problem. Let me go over here and do exactly, face exactly where you were facing, and do my connection again. And you left me alone. I think you went back to the car, I believe. So at that point, the sun was facing me, and I closed my eyes, I connected, I opened my eyes again, and a ray of light hit my heart chakra. And then I also got one in my third eye. And what happened to me was that all of them showed up for me, as many as, well, I can't say all of them, but I'm going to tell you the ones that I remember, and there's many more that I can't even remember because there were so many. But of the ones that everyone would probably recognize offhand was Jesus Sananda, was the first one that appeared. And that one, every time I see Jesus Sananda, I burst into tears. So I started bawling, and bawling, and bawling. And then Saint Germain showed up. Okay, well, now I'm really bawling now. And then Morya, and Mary, and a whole bunch of elders, and other ones that I didn't recognize because they were, maybe they're not as popular in this world, that we make little postcards out of and things like that, but I recognize them as being masters. And they were all there, and they were there for a while. I'm going to tell you, they were there for a while, and they were in such gratitude, Atona. It was such a humbling experience, because they were almost like thanking me, and I'm thinking, thanking me for what? What the heck have I done? But they were it's such reverence and such humility. They're there almost like they're there in a sense of being in service to us. So it's a state of being humble, and And that's how you know. They don't come in with the trumpets and saying, I am Lord. You know, they just are. And so that puts me on the floor, you know, with tears because of that love. And so when it lasted for a while for me. And when you approached me, I was just getting out of the experience, and was I in tears? Was there makeup running down my eyes?
Yes, no, you were, your shirt was actually wet from all the tears. But not just that. One of the things that I wanted to mention is that these are transformative experiences. Mm-hmm. You actually are being transfigured when you have these experiences, meaning that in order for you to experience these experiences, your consciousness has to raise to certain vibratory levels. And when that happens, you visually see that with the person. And so she was, you know, although there were tears, you know, and her cheeks were very wet, she was radiating this beautiful, loving light from her. And of course, a humbleness happens. Mm-hmm. It's hard to describe.
Yeah. Well, I I believe that you took a picture right after. Mm-hmm. And I believe I took a picture of you also. So we were kind of both glowing at that point from this experience. And so, and just so you know, then afterwards, of course, we couldn't stop. We were so excited. But that night in my hotel room, as I was sitting in the bed getting ready to put my head, down on the pillow, I heard the most magnificent choir of angels that lasted for a very long time until I fell asleep. So, yeah, it was one of those moments that, I'm like right now I'm moved because I'm reliving it. And so, that it was very profound, and it has still an amazing effect on my life, because all these moments of transfiguration are just building blocks for that mastery. So, anyway, thank you for that, memory. That was just a memory that's just amazing. Anyway,
and I would like to go just a little bit further with this story, because we did have another friend with us, and she has been on a spiritual journey for some time, and this was a trip that she was very, very, very much wanting to take part in. She did go to Panther Meadow, and Panther Meadow is where Saint Germain, you heard in an earlier conversation, Ari, take it from here with who was with him.
Oh, that was Guy Ballard. Yeah, Guy Ballard was met Saint Germain on Panther Meadows, and there was an experience with his encounter with a panther, and it was basically to test, basically to test it for his fear, whether he was in fear, that type of thing. But the panther was actually Saint Germain, and anyway, that's why it's called Panther Meadows. So our friend decided to go do her meditation in Panther Meadows. Right. And
a little bit of background about her. She, at a very, very young age, she was raised in Wyoming, and at a very, very young age, was off into the natural world on her horse. So at 5 years old, she was taking journeys on her horse into the natural world. And she had many experiences with the animal kingdom, that she raised bear cubs and had raccoons, and she loved the natural world. So her trip down to Panther Meadows, I'm going to give you background. She had an experience that I witnessed. I had gotten a telephone call, and she happened to be with me, and she picked up the phone and handed me the phone, and then turned around and fell face first forward, down, collapsed. And I saw her leave her body, and I got the person on the phone off as I'm yelling for her to come back, and I'm basically calling 911. And I turned her over. She was already starting to turn blue. She was not breathing. And this was in Memphis, I think. And what happened was they started, the ambulance got there. I had already started CPR, was trying to administer CPR. I had training in it, and talking to the phone at the same time. So they came, the ambulance took her in the ambulance, continuing the CPR, and took her to the nearest hospital. What was transpiring for her was she was leaving. And she actually told me this at the hospital while still in a grand mal seizure. She was actually in a grand mal seizure. And I went to where they had her in bed. And she looked up at me and she said, "I'm with Saint Germain," and she told me what she was experiencing.
Wow.
And then closed her eyes again. And essentially what happened is she saw the light and she was going for it.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden she saw this violet flame come through the golden light that she was in, and it stopped her. And she saw Saint Germain standing right in front of her with Sanandus off to the side. And Saint Germain said, "You can't leave. You still have work to do." And he gave her information about her future, which she related to me while still in that grand mal seizure state. And then she came back. The long and the short of it is she had a tremendous love, of course, because she was left with memory of that experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so when she went to Mount Shasta, she really wanted to be on that path that Saint Germain had been on. So that's the background for her. So you have a more in-depth understanding of who she was and why she had such a love for Saint Germain. There was actual experience that put her in direct contact with him. And he gave her information about her future. So now she's with Ari and I, and she goes down Panther Meadow. And we're waiting now for her to return. Remember, we were really excited?
Yeah.
And she comes back, and she is so excited. And she starts showing us pictures on her camera. And what she was showing us was that what happened is she went down that road and reality changed for her.
Yeah.
Oh, just so magical. I just love it.
Uh-huh.
And she actually, because of her love for the natural world, was allowed to interact with the tree people and the elemental kingdom, and she actually saw them, and they let her photograph them, right, Ari?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
She actually has pictures of them coming through the trees and revealing themselves to her. Life-changing experience.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah.
The rest of the story is personal to her, and I don't need to reveal that. And that's why I'm not mentioning her name. That would be up to her if she wanted that revealed. But the fact is, her experience with the natural world has continued. It was a life-changing event. She actually is able to see into the elemental kingdom now, and has had other experiences with that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, and I noticed, and I guess what I would like to make a comment on is that, and in no time, or let me see how I phrase this. Whenever I've had an experience with the Ascended Masters or any of these realms, the mind has not been involved.
No, it can't be.
Right. So,
and you'll have a much greater understanding of that as we go into what that dissolution experience in Yosemite actually gave me in terms of my knowledge of how reality is actually constructed and how the personal self that you believe yourself to be is constructed. And I will give you information on how your 4 lower bodies are interactive and what in your 4 lower bodies actualizes the karmic wheel. Also how to move beyond what is the trap of the personal self. These are ancient teachings that come from enlightened souls. So what I'm going to be revealing to all of you is not something that is new. However, how I am going to be revealing it and what you can do with it now is very, very much open to you.
Right.
So in terms of why I brought up Mount Shasta and why I brought up Master El Morya, just a little bit of information to you. In the Illumined Worlds, there are places of teachings. These are beautiful, magnificent temples that exist in what's known as the 7 spheres of consciousness. And these are actual worlds. And within each sphere, there are purposes that are taking place. And I will go into that in much greater detail in the future, one of our stories. But I want you to understand that the information connects to the Illumined Worlds that I'm giving you. So Master El Morya is actually the head of all of the activities of transfiguration of our particular root race. He and Master Saint Germain work together along with the archangels and the other masters, but they are the ones who are in charge and facilitating what is happening currently and will happen. So, Master El Morya and the other masters work with synchronicity, and they collapse time, and they give demonstrations of spiritual concepts experientially. And part of what you look for when you are engaging in your personal journey is you look for the synchronicities in your life. They are not accidental. They are governed by those that are working with you specifically to advance you in your spiritual awakening. So if you find that somebody mentions a book and then you happen to turn around and that same book is on a table and nobody is around, you can bet that that book was there synchronistically for you specifically. Or if you hear of a conversation more than once, pay attention, because in that conversation, something is being brought to your attention. These are the ways in which, when you start paying attention that way, time starts collapsing and you start walking out of the illusion, because that is how it begins to break down in the synchronicity of your life experiences. So, in that synchronicity, that experience up at Mount Shasta gave me my first visual contact with Master El Morya, although, as I told you, he didn't say anything, he just looked at me. Ari will tell you that on our return home, I mentioned a couple of times, I just saw Master El Morya again. And that means that he was in my energetic field and I saw his presence. that does not mean that he tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, I want to talk to you." No, that doesn't happen.
Right.
But when you acknowledge that that is going on, what happens is the experience begins to be linked to what you need to know. So, I'm going to digress here. Keep that in mind. Everyone that knew me knew that I had had a vision that had come to me, and it was of a lake. And I searched from Florida all the way to the Pacific Northwest for this lake.
Mm-hmm.
Ari will tell you, I drove, I went anywhere that I felt it could possibly be, looking for this lake.
Atona, was that a vision of the lake that you got, or how did you? Okay.
Yes, it was a vision. I was given a vision, and I do get visions. That's part of how I see things. It's not like somebody is placing a screen in front of me. Mm-hmm. It's a knowing that I will have some kind of visual event, and then it's for me to unfold, just like it is for everyone else. Mm-hmm. Now, that's the way it was then. Okay? So, what was transpiring with this vision was my searching, and 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 it was a good year and a half I'm looking for this lake.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, I had a friend in Colorado, and I called her up and I said, I just had an experience. I was on the telephone and on my computer, and I was calling places that had lakes for sale. And I just happened to be dialing one of the, written right on the piece of paper sitting right next to me that I had taken off the internet, a phone number of a place that had a house next to a lake for sale. And I got a completely different number. And a woman answered the phone. I didn't know I had a different number. I was talking to her, and she started explaining where her place was, and I got confused because the description didn't fit any of the ones that I had put down. I think I had like 3 or 4 others. Wow. And I'm looking right at their numbers, and I asked her, I said, where are you located? And she said, I'm located in Ronth. And I'm looking, and I go, where is that? And she said, it's in New Mexico.
Where did she say? Where did she say she was located?
Ronth.
Oh, Ronth, right. Okay. Yeah.
And I was like, where is that? It wasn't on my pieces of paper. and yet, and neither was her phone number.
Wow.
And so I was completely baffled by that, and I said to her at that point, well, I don't know how I wound up calling you because you're not on my paper here. But obviously, I'm to connect with you, so I'm going to come. Give me your address, and blah, 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 blah. We exchanged addresses. And I called a friend of mine, and I set out the following day to go to Ronth to see this place that she had for sale. So I get there, and it's a 7,000-acre ranch, and it is below Gallup. It is through the desert, and it's a beautiful environment. The scenery is on the Navajo reservation, and very, very pristine, clear energy. And I turn into where this property was, where this 7,000 acres is, and driving down the road, and there are ruins, just like you would see in Mesa Verde, and they're like right there, right off the road.
Wow.
And you could just feel the sacredness of this road, and the whole experience. So I pull into the area, I follow her directions, I meet her, I go on her property, and I don't like it. Okay, you have to understand, I am spoiled. I have had some beautiful properties.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to go there in a little bit.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, we're going to explore that one, too.
Yeah, okay. And So I'm just like, oh, where are you bringing me now? This can't possibly be where you want me to live, because this is not my cup of tea. So I'm a little bit disappointed, and I say, okay, why don't you take me down to the lake? Okay, now this is a 7,000-acre ranch, and they have subdivided it. It's a very, very beautiful idea, and they have a big, huge waterfall at one part of the place, and they have trails for your horses and stuff like that, and I could care less about that. I had enough of my own property that was too beautiful to let go for this.
Yeah.
And so when I get to, okay, so we go down, and there's a fence, a gate, that she has to unlock. And she says, this is private. It is for only people on the ranch. And it is a huge lake. And it's surrounded by beautiful red cliffs like you would see in Sedona. So it's a beautiful environment. And so I'm walking down, and I look at the lake, and I'm a distance away from it. The three of us are standing there, and I don't see anything. So I go, all right, well, let me walk down to the edge of the water. And so I walk down to the edge of the water, and my friend's right in back of me. And I'm watching where I'm walking. I get to the edge, and I look up, and bam!
Wow.
The image of the lake, the lake itself, and the image that I had, the vision of the image that I had in my head, merged.
Oh, wow.
The energy of it connecting literally blew me back into my friend.
Wow.
And I knew, I saw it, that was the lake. Okay? That was the lake. Okay? Now, audience, you got to hear this, okay? So what?
Yeah, right.
What does this mean?
Yeah.
Again, you don't get all of the information immediately. That's part of what actually initiates you into greater spiritual awakenings and mastery and understandings, and what makes your life transform from an ordinary life to an extraordinary life.
Yep.
And so I had the lake now, but I didn't know what it was all about. And as Ari will tell you, I left, and I was going to buy that property, but I was blocked from buying it, and I'm really glad, because I hated that property. I didn't want to live there. So, but the lake did have significance, and I was to come into that understanding through an interaction that I had with my friend Ari here. And what it was Ari had called me up. We stayed in, pretty close communication, and basically I had visions of that lake again. Now, some time had passed, and I hadn't mentioned the lake, as Ari will tell you. I hadn't mentioned the lake for a while, and then I started having the visions of it. And I when she called me, I said to her, Ari, I'm having visions of that lake again. And she goes, really? I go, yeah. She goes, let me just take a look at where that lake is. And I'll call you back. Let's just see what zone it's in, okay?
Right.
I said, okay, not thinking anything of it. Well, okay. There's the kicker. She calls me back, and she says, are you sitting down? I said, no. She said, well, you better. So I didn't sit down. I told her I did, but I braced myself against the wall because I knew she had something that was going to blow my socks off. Okay. So she goes, that property, that lake, is right under the first Golden City. That's on Ori Tori's map.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, that was not the only surprise she had in store for me. She saved the last for best. Because I was like, oh, really? Well, oh, that's really interesting. She goes, yeah. But the master of that city is Master Morya.
Yeah, and for a lot of people who probably think, oh my goodness, these two women are being silly. I know it's the significance of it, because you're going to, of course, reveal a little bit more about what happened in Yosemite, right?
Of course.
Of course.
So, that we take a break. We laugh at the experience. We know that we're being played with right now, and so she goes into her day, I go into mine, and I happen to go into my bedroom, and I picked up one of the books that I had, just to sit and kind of. I like to thumb through books, so I'll take my book and I'll just thumb it. And usually, if something in the book is to be seen by me, it will just pop out. And that's exactly what happened. I actually picked up this book, and it was on the masters and their retreats. And I just happened to thumb. And a page stops. And there's this little thumbnail picture. And I look at it, and I go, what the? That's El Capitan. So I bring the book up to my face so that I can really see what it's saying. And what is it saying? Master Morya's etheric retreat is above El Capitan. Revealed that Master Morya was the master that had been working with me. He was the one that I was listening to and heard his voice. It was Master Morya. And of course, since then, I have interacted on a conscious interaction in the Illumined Worlds with Master Morya. So, but this is how it plays out.
Yep. And it's the synchronicities. The synchronicities.
The synchronicities of our experiences that get brought to us. Now, I will go much more fully into my experience and the teachings and understandings of that. But there are some other things that I want to bring in because they are magical, and I was asked to do that by my dear friend here. And that is that I did have a property in Colorado, and there were some very, very magical and wonderful experiences that took place on this property.
Yep, absolutely.
It was in Mancos, Colorado, and I had a beautiful property with big meadows and two beautiful ponds that flowed into each other through a stream that ran all year. And just to give you the setting, you could not see any houses from where I lived. There was 200 and something acres that adjoined my property that belonged to a colonel, and he kept it pristine, never building on it. Any houses that were in the area you could not see from where I was. I was completely protected from those houses. And what started to happen, I had, my house had picture windows and also large doors that opened out. And you would look out onto one of my big ponds and the stream, and then there was an open meadow to the left. And one evening I happened to go out and I saw something that was really odd. I saw a circle of light that had appeared in that meadow. Now this was not a large circle of light. At the most, it might have been 10 by 10 circumference. 10
feet by 10 feet or 10
feet? Yeah.
Wow.
Not big at all.
Yeah, but that's not small either.
Oh yeah, this is small.
Oh, okay.
When you're looking at it in like 10 acres or 5 or 6 acres of land, it's very tiny.
Okay.
It's not big. Okay. And now that circle of light expanded to encompass that whole field.
Wow.
And there were many people that worked with me and other spiritual teachers that brought their students to the property that actually witnessed the circle of light that appeared. And so I went out when I saw this, and I was looking all over where could that source of light be. And there was no source of light. There was no nothing from where my property, my house was, and nothing in the surrounding areas that I could see that could have produced that light.
So Atona, it wasn't coming from the sky, like a searchlight or anything like that, coming from.
No. There was nothing in the sky. It was just the night sky, and this was a circle of light that appeared. And there's not too much you can do but wonder, what is that? And so I wondered, what is that? And it started. It took time, but it started to grow, and I was accustomed to just going out and looking at it. It started to change also, because at first it was flat on the ground, just a circumference that you could see. And then I could actually see that it was starting to form what looked like a cylinder. So it wasn't just flat. It was like a cylinder of light that was circular. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Describing it right? Okay?
Yeah.
And then it started expanding in its size until it got to the point where there were times when it was very, very high as a cylinder and very, very wide in its circumference.
And how long did this process take, do you think?
Months.
Months. So it was there for months.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, this circle of light was witnessed by many, many different people.
Okay.
And so, but one thing that really, really changed it for me. I was able to walk into the circle of light also.
Okay.
Okay. And you would see, you could feel the circle around you. Others walked into the circle of light as well. It didn't disappear when we walked into it. We were looking at it, and so, but this one evening I had a group of people that I was working with join me, and, as you know, my entire house, people were all over my house, and they were it was in the night now, and they were sleeping, getting ready, and in sleeping bags and different things like that. And there was one woman left who had not gotten into bed, was taking a shower. And then I had walked out, and I was standing there next to my pond, and I was just looking at the circle of light. When all of a sudden, towards the, if you could think of it, a field, a clear field with only one structure, and that was my chicken house in this field, and a big circle of light extending around the field, and it's in front of you. It would be towards the left that I saw this, and just about in the middle, but left of the middle.
Okay.
All of a sudden, I saw a being of light step out from what looked like an invisible wall. So I saw the being step forward. I actually saw the leg move and walk forward. Now, to describe this being of light, you're going to laugh, okay? But this is the truth. The being of light was like you would have seen in Cocoon.
Yeah.
All light. And just the actual form of the body and head and arms was intense light. And and there was like just a real fine kind of mist surrounding that light.
Mm-hmm.
There was no way of identifying. There was no clothes.
Right.
Also, no clothes. It was light. The form was complete light. Stepped out, and of course I was frozen with my attention on this being, and it walked a few feet ahead, and another one walked out. Okay?
Okay. Yeah.
And as I was standing there, the woman that had been in the shower was coming out to say goodnight, and she walked up to me, and all I could do was point.
Uh-huh.
And she turned and looked, and of course they were right there. She saw them, and she was like, "Oh my God!"
Oh gosh, that is amazing.
I instantly received communication, and it was not like telepathic communication where you hear words at all.
Mm-hmm.
No, it was instantaneous, and it was, "Don't come into the light when we're present." And my understanding was that the vibration of the light at that time was very, very different than what we could have stepped into.
Yeah.
And so I quickly told her, "Don't go near the light at this point, not while they're there."
Mm-hmm.
Because remember, I told you the people were accustomed to going into the circle of light.
Right.
So, and while we were there, another one stepped out. So there were actually 3 of these beings that stepped out and showed themselves to us. I didn't get any more significant communication than that. The sense was benevolence, and I don't know how to describe it any other way than to say there was an essence of love that permeated the experience. So that they then went right back to that invisible wall, and that was it. The light subsided, and that ended that particular experience with them. Of course, everyone in the household then was awakened because it's very hard to not feel the excitement. Well, these kinds of experiences began to happen frequently, and people would come to have those experiences. And, so they would come running in to me, and I'd be doing something in the kitchen, and they'd want to drag me out because there'd be beings of light that they were witnessing, and I was already like, I already know they're there. Stop bothering me.
Yeah. So it became like, it was a customary thing now. They were coming in and out of the light. Of the light circle.
They didn't always stay right there either in that light. They
would move around.
I'm going to tell just one more of. Well, I have 2 that.
Go please. Yeah.
Really funny. But my friend's sister, who does not have any spiritual understandings, came to visit her.
Yeah, I was hoping you'd say that one.
Yes. Okay. So to describe my house followed the contours of the land. And so in the living room, it was all windows, and then those big French doors. And then you would go down some steps, and then there was a bedroom off to the right that didn't have doors. And adjoining that bedroom was a bathroom that was private to that bedroom, and then that did have doors. And then right in front of that bedroom, there were these big picture doors that led out into this beautiful scenery of the stream in front of the house, and there was a deck, and on the deck I had a umbrella table with chairs, and these chairs could spin around. These are typical for people that have outdoor furniture. There's nothing unusual about it, okay?
Yeah.
The thing is that we never really, my friend never really spoke to. This was her sister by adoption, or not necessarily by adoption. You know how when a parent gets into a relationship with
that already has a child in the other relationship.
Yeah, and then they have another
so
child.
It's a stepsister.
Yeah,
stepsister.
Yeah, that kind of sister.
Okay, all right.
And so they were connecting for the first time, and so not for the first time. I mean, they were seeing each other after not having seen each other for a while.
Okay.
So she was not given any information about the beings of light or the circles of light or anything that was going on this property. She was just brought in and enjoying her sister's company. And that night, she went to bed with her own little room, and she woke up during the night and she sat up. And when she sat up, she looked directly out onto the deck. And directly in front of her, sitting in one of the chairs, was a being of light.
Twirling in the chair? Wasn't he twirling? Wasn't he twirling around in the chair?
No, he did. He did turn around.
Oh, he turned around and looked at her.
Yeah. And so she fell back and drew the covers over her head, you know, and then she got back up because she couldn't believe that she was seeing what she was seeing, and this being was looking right back at her. It didn't go away. And so she put her covers back over her head, and then that being, of course, realized that there was fear happening, and that ended that interaction. And of course, we were told about it the first thing in the morning, and the second thing in the morning was she left.
So much for that, huh? Wow, that is hilarious.
But you know, you would think, well, why would they do something like that? Why would that happen in a person's life? And the fact of the matter is, there isn't anybody that is not being worked with by spirit. I don't care who it is. You don't know what is happening behind the scenes in anybody's life. You don't have that information. We're not privy to it. Unless you are in a particular lineage and you have attained certain levels of consciousness that allow you to work with others. You don't get to see what it is that motivates something in somebody else's life. And this is a really, really important part of understanding, to free yourself from one of the most important instruments that perpetuates the illusion, and that is judgment. We judge other people all the time in so many different ways. And that judgment has a purpose. It has a purpose. That purpose is to hold the polarization of separation in place. And we'll go into more detail about that. But write that down. Write that down. Judgment.
Yeah, I got it.
Functions.
Yep.
And you can bring me back to that at another time, okay? But in terms of being able to move beyond judgment, you have to understand the construct of this reality. And it's been said many, many, many different ways that we live in a world of polarization. The yin and yang symbol is talking about polarization, and the middle way is the way between the opposites, duality. Everything in this reality has an opposite. I defy someone to come to me with something that does not have an opposite to it. There's only one state of consciousness that does not, and that is the eternal and that is love, which is ever expanding. So, in terms of being able to begin to work with your own consciousness, to begin to take the veil of separation from your experience, you have to understand the role that judgment plays. Begin observing yourself when judgment comes into play in all of its various subtleties. Ari?
Yeah, no, I'm listening to you. Are you done?
Yeah, I'm done with that part.
Okay, good. I didn't want to interrupt. All right, cool. All right, let's go back real quick to the beings of light that are coming in from these circles. Did they ever communicate who they were?
No, they never did give me a location of where they came from. I can tell you that, this is not new information. Anyone that has actually had experiences with the Ashtar Command knows that the Ashtar Command has different locations. One of their main locations is at Mesa Verde, and it is in the etheric realm at Mesa Verde.
Right.
And for those that don't know this, Mesa Verde is actually the oldest open portal into this dimensional reality, which means that many beings who are currently embodied have actually come through that portal at Mesa Verde. And that portal was closed for quite a long time. It is now open again.
Yeah.
So the Ashtar Command is located at Mesa Verde. And so there's a 50-mile radius that command can be experienced in from Mesa Verde. And this is old information. It's not new. Anybody that has done any research can find that information pretty quickly. The Four Corners area is very, very sacred area.
Yep. Yeah, they can definitely experience energetically the Ashtar Command there. There's no doubt. Now, so they really didn't specifically say, but you kind of knew who they were, yes?
Ari.
Yes.
They were not command.
Okay.
They were not. I can honestly tell you that they were not command.
Okay.
But I cannot tell you where they came from. I would be making it up if I did. And
that's fine.
I don't do that. I'll give you as much as I can, but I can't give you anything I don't have.
Okay, that's great.
And all I can tell you is that they were extremely benevolent. They would not have been on that property if they hadn't had interactions with the command.
Gotcha.
Now, that I can say.
Okay, perfect.
And I know that. So
that's great. Did you want to talk about your experience with that light ship in Joshua Tree? Because I think that's very beautiful.
Okay, that really was not in Joshua Tree.
Where was it?
It was on I-10.
Oh, okay.
I was driving actually on I-10. It was in the evening, and it was a very overcast day. I happened to be with John again, and I received a communication, and the communication was to look to my right into the sky. And so I did. I looked to my right, and what I saw was what looked like a cloud formation. And so as I watched it, and you have to remember I'm driving, so I'm looking and driving at the same time. And the cloud formation began to emanate light in a particular area. So I knew that was the area that they were talking for me to look at. And so as I'm driving and I'm looking up, I'm watching the transformation of the space, and the clouds actually parted.
Yep.
And this amazing ship of light was there. And it was complete, intense light at the very core of it. I could draw a picture of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to describe. There was it had almost like a bell shape on the top, and then as you go down 3/4 away around that bell shape, there was a what looked like a rim that went all the way around.
Mm-hmm.
And then underneath it, there was like this soft, you could think of a pot underneath.
A pot?
A pot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, like a frying pan or something.
Okay.
Shape underneath it. So it was actually formed in this really beautiful formation. It's hard for me to describe without drawing it. On the very, very top, there was this very, 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 very high, intense, looked like a rod of light that came up to a point. And the body of that was intense light. All around it was this fine, beautiful, soft light. Completely a globe of light. And it was breathing. The whole thing was breathing. You could see the breath that it was taking.
Wow. So when you say breathing, what was it? Contracting, expanding?
Yes. Just like a breath. Just like our breath. And that's because we are all on something called the universal breath. Everything breathes the universal breath. Our breath, our human breath, is actually constricting. It's constricted. You know, if you were to think about the transition of death, there is a point where the breath is surrendered. There's no more breath being taken.
Right.
What's actually occurring for that being is not a constriction, it's an expansion. Like they've come out of a constriction. It's like,
Deliberation.
Yes, deliberation is so expansive because you go on to the universal breath. And it is expansive. And you realize how constricting the human breath actually has been.
Right.
And so everything is on that universal breath. It's very, very beautiful.
It is. So what is the difference between these light ships and the ships that are made out of nuts and bolts and metal? If you can go in there to explain.
Well, let me just say this: I have seen both. I've seen the other ships.
Right.
They're very, very distinctly different. They come from the fallen world. The others come from the illumined world. They are not fallen, and you are being raised in your vibration to actually see them.
Right.
And by fallen world, I mean the world of separation. And that is the third dimension. It is a world constructed out of the concept that there is something outside the divine. And just like your car has been created in this reality, those ships that you're referring to that are constructed out of metal and have the ability to move like that, the aerodynamics of that are still part of separation, and the concepts that emanate that are no more significant than the concepts that emanate your vehicle. sitting in your front yard.
Interesting.
Does that make sense?
Sure, of course. Yeah,
okay.
Of course.
I just want to know if I'm giving you it in a way that you can take the information in. If you can't, then just ask a question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I just want to make sure that that everyone understands that, because, a lot of people think that there's, just that every single type of vehicle is of the light, and everybody is, that type of thing. So anyway, let me ask you.
Ari, that is a very good point.
Mm-hmm.
And we could take a break for a minute, but just let me just say this, okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's very important to understand that when we talk about these ships being metallic, and we're not coming from a polarized place of making that wrong. We're just stating a fact and not polarizing with the fact that that ship is constructed in a fallen universe.
Right.
And to understand this more, you have to continue with our series.
Well, that's...
And at some point, I believe that Ari is going to be opening up for questions.
Yeah.
And then we have some really interesting surprises for you.
Yeah.
I'm just going to hint at them. I'm going to start hinting at them now. Part of it is to continue you on your journey with what we're doing. So we're holding out a little bit of candy for you.
Yeah, that's right.
But I can guarantee you're not going to want to miss what we're talking about.
Right. Well, this is all part of the magic, and I know that we're going to be winding down real soon, but I was wondering if you have enough energy in you to explain, why are we going into this whole thing? Why are we explaining this? Why are we going into the experiences and bringing this up? You don't have to go into elaborating into it. Just give the audience an understanding as to why should they invest their time in going through all these series for the purpose of what?
That's a good question. And I know that the majority of you have already been on a spiritual journey for quite some time. And I'm not talking about just this lifetime. I'm talking about many lifetimes. And I'm sure many of you have your own personal knowledge of your past lifetimes to a certain extent. And maybe some of you don't. That does not mean that what you're listening to is not for you. But we are now in a very, very amazing period of time. A lot of you heard about 2012, and a lot of you were like, oh my God, what happened? Because nothing happened, it appears. No, it's not true. There's a lot that really took place and is still taking place. The context to understand your life experience is very important in your own transfiguration. In order for you to really comprehend what's happening, you have to begin to have your own personal experiences with this, and then be given a context to understand your personal experience. In the beginning of this part of the journey, it is essential that you hear about it, because that's the first rending of the veil. You're not expected to fully understand and comprehend at that point. It is known that you're not going to comprehend all that's being said, and that's because you are veiled. My intent and my knowledge is to give you the tools to actually dissolve the structures that hold you in this experience, meaning walking out of the life-death experience into your own illumination, your own experiences of your divine self, your own experiences with the Illumined Worlds. This is not something I plan to tell you about, although I am telling you about it. I have a reason for doing that. The reason I'm doing that is it's the rending of the veil. It has to happen that way. You have to first hear about it. That's the way it has always happened. That's the way it will. Then you begin to put things together, and you are given information about how to take your own personal life experience and start seeing through the veil that's constructing your personal experience of you. Of you. Nobody can tell you what that is. It has to be you. So you have to be able to take the information and begin to dissolve yourself, because you're the one that knows you best. You know, you need a way of seeing how you are held in a configuration that prevents you from being where I'm telling you I am, which is I'm experiencing the Illumined Worlds. I can't talk from a place that I don't know. I'm there. That's where you want to go, and that's where these tools will start showing you. So that context will also give you an understanding of how to view what you're currently seeing and hearing about in mainstream media, but not just in mainstream media. A large percentage of you are also listening to alternative media. To be able to see how both construct your experience so that you can move beyond it. That's the intent of these programs.
That's wonderful. To be able to walk out of this what we call the 3D matrix.
It is.
Yeah.
It is exactly that, and it is. You know, I have people in various different degrees of that walking right now. I have people who are beginning to have already begun experiencing their own journey into the Illumined Worlds. I have people who are having experiences where they're time jumping and being conscious of it, conscious dreaming. These are not things that I told them they would experience. I just gave them tools and said, go, here, this is what you do.
Right.
Of course, they stay in communication and they have questions, and, you know, I've acted as a guide. That's what my whole intent and purpose is.
Yep. All right. Well, I feel that this is about the time that we can call it the end of the program, probably, because I think that the next time around we're going to go a little bit more, well, not a little bit, probably begin where you start perhaps sharing some of those tools. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah?
I'm so ready to start that, Corey.
Okay.
And, you know, and then, you know, we're going to design how we can be interactive with them, because there's going to be a ton of questions. And you can't just give and dump the information and not assist them.
Sure.
So you and I have to work out how do we become interactive with them.
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we'll do. So thank you again, Atona, for being with us. You know, again, these are all the stories, experiences that we've had. Many of us, of course, might be even. You probably even bring some students on. I'm pretty sure that will be able to reveal some of their experiences as well.
Well, yes, and I just wanted to tell you that I also spoke with Bodhi, and you remember I told you that Bodhi, who was one of the people that traveled to the Yucatan, I spoke to him and his wife.
Good.
And I asked them, would they be willing to participate? And Bodhi said yes, he would, and I believe Barbara will as well. they can give you an understanding of what their experiences have been on the journey that we took down into the Yucatan. I think that adds flavor, and you get to experience others who have been a part of the journey that I've spoken about.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I think that that again will just help expand everybody's understanding of what you're trying to bring, the experiences that everybody's shared, and because of the tools that you obviously imparted on everyone else, that they can travel, that or walk that walk as well, getting their own experiences.
Ari, there's something else. Might as well talk about it right in front of everyone. I think there may be questions already,
mm-hmm.
and before we go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you could ask, if that's the case,
mm-hmm.
would people write in to you
Sure.
on your site and let you know that they have questions? And depending on how many we get, maybe our next show should open that first.
That's great.
Those questions. But if we don't get a lot of people writing in and saying, I have questions,
okay.
then we'll proceed, okay?
That sounds good. And again, the questions are obviously something that will open up, I'm sure, much conversation. So, yes, anyone who's interested in bringing those questions to me, to my attention, you can you can do through the website, which is 2012emergence.com, or you can email me at Ari Kopel, that's ARIKOPEL, at yahoo.com. Email me directly and ask your questions, and I will go ahead and forward them to Atona, and that way we can open up the next program with those questions. Hopefully we can address every single one of them, hopefully. Anyway, you've all been listening to Atona Part 4 of Walking Between Realities. We will do Part 5 as soon as we can. And my name is Ari Kopel. The show is Shattering the Matrix. You normally can hear us every Thursday night at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time or 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but it's whenever we have a show, we will basically announce it. Sometimes we are on, sometimes we're not, but definitely we will keep you posted as to when the next interview would be with Atona. And thank you very much for listening. Atona, thank you very much again for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Ari, and good night, folks.
Good night. God bless.